the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area since January 2021, this year. When you look at the Agenda 2063, African leaders in the Aspiration 1 indicated that we need a prosperous Africa that is based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. And we've increased sustainability production, productivity, and value addition in key sectors like agriculture, and where the environment and ecosystem are healthy and preserved, and with a climate resilient economy and communities. Today, we will focus on that topic, on agriculture sector. How can our agriculture sector be sustainable? And what is gonna be the role, and what is the role of these voluntary sustainable standards? What is the role of certification? Then we will also link to the technical regulation issues. Why do we talk about this certification and sustainability standard? Our ministers in charge of environment since 2008, they indicated that our private sector is faced with many labels, many eco-labels, in the name of promoting the product of Africa for export. Yeah, and requested also to develop EcoMark Africa. The EcoMark Africa that was launched on 8th May 2019 in Nairobi, where different countries and different companies have been awarded the EcoMark. Two of the companies that have been awarded the EcoMark Africa are with us today. One in the area of aquaculture, which is Kamuthanga, and the other in the area of the horticulture, which is Quarko. They are with us. We have been requested by many of the participants to our webinars to really discuss the matters of standardization, the matters of certification with the private sector. We want to hear from you today. We want to listen to you and tell us where do we go wrong. And we want also to hear from the regulators, to tell us, do we need this regulation to be able to implement even a voluntary standard or a compulsory standard? But when you look at it, how are we going to position African products? Yeah, is it by production in mass? Is it by selecting what we really need to do? A product which is sustainably produced, is it having an advantage? We are also talking about organic farming that is coming along. Today, we hope that in 1 hour and a half, at most 2 hours, we will be having some answers. Feel free to use the chat box for your questions. We have a chat box, and you have also a interpretation. You look at the globe or under the Zoom, it's written interpretation. We have English and French. If you are bilingual, you can put it off. If you are Anglophone, you can put on English. If you are Francophone, you can put on French. Then don't hesitate to continue chatting with us and asking your question. Without further delays, I would like to present our first speaker, who is Mr. Ruben Gisore, the ARZO Technical Director. who is responsible for coordinating all the technical work, being the harmonization of standard, developmental standard, and conformity assessment. He will discuss with us the ISO quality mark and EcoMark Africa certification scheme and the African EcoMark sustainability standard in the context of sustainable production and consumption. As we come to the next topic, I will be also presenting to you the next speaker. Ruben Gisore has a very big experience in standardization. He has been working with Kenya Bureau of Standards till 2012, and he has worked in the standardization, quality assurance, and metrology and testing in East Africa. Ruben Gisore, you can start your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, SG, and I welcome all the participants to my presentation. It's going to be a brief presentation. Obviously, for reasons that it cannot cover everything that is under this particular subject, which is very interesting. I will cover the two aspects of the quality mark, the ISO quality mark, which is one of the marks that should be used to indicate that the products have passed the certification to quality with regard to standards, respective standards that the products comply with. And then I'll look at the EcoMark certification, which outlines the sustainability of the product with respect to the environment, the economy, social issues. So briefly, ISO was established in 1977 by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, and the then Organization of African Unity, with a very brief mandate, if we take it, that it is to harmonize national and regional standards and issue necessary recommendations to member states in this regard. And you'll be seeing why we use that as a very key aspect. And then to promote and coordinate standardization and conformity assessment systems in the African continent. So the whole purpose of doing that is linked to facilitating inter-African trade as well as global trade, so that our African countries can participate in international trade as well as trade among ourselves. You know, when you have trade happening among neighbors, it creates prosperity and good understanding. And all this is possible through harmonized standards and conformity assessment systems. Now, back to what is considered as sustainable consumption and production. What is it? In this respect, it is the use of services and related products which respond to basic needs, and our underlying basic needs, so that we do not confuse ourselves with some of the luxuries that are actually not necessary. The use of services and related products which respond to basic needs and bring a better quality of life, while minimizing the use of natural resources and toxic materials, as well as the emission of waste and pollutants over the life cycle of the service or product, so as not to jeopardize the needs of future or further generations. Now, it's very important to understand that as human beings, we extract what we need from the environment. Whether you see that immediately when you are buying your mobile phone or when you are eating your food, it's something that you need to contextualize, that most of these things come from the environment. Nothing really happens or comes from nowhere. Now, when you're using this, there's always that perspective that you may overuse, that sometimes you may over-extract what you are going to use. And therefore you find that you have a surplus of what you really wanted to use, but something else that you did not want to use. And once you have this, you find that you are disrupting the ecosystem from which you extracted that material that you are converting or you are using directly. So there's that disruption. You look at someone doing farming, they will clear the forest, they will cut out trees, they will chase away animals that have made that place their home and use that place for purpose of producing their food. At the end of it, there's that aspect of now trying to use chemicals that you are uh, clearing the weeds, or you are chasing away pests. And at the end of it, you find that you are actually using very toxic wastes. And these toxic wastes probably make the soil unsuitable for further use. And for anybody else who may want to use that soil afterwards, you find that that soil cannot be used anymore, or that water source cannot be used anymore. So this is what we mean that if you do that, then you are not being sustainable. Your production and consumption are not sustainable at all. So what we do in that respect, you look at the indicators, the domestic material consumption that you're using, the national material efficiency. Are we efficient in how we use materials? And then the contamination that you have in the air. You're very happy when you get your cement produced, very happy when you get water extracted, very happy when you have all the soil that is being utilized for construction or whatever purposes. Is that sustainable? What are the impacts? That's what you're looking at. When you are fishing or when you are dumping some of the waste materials, like the current uh, concerns about the dumping of nuclear wastewater into the oceans. What are the impacts in that? Is that a sustainable way of doing things? Sometimes you can do that because you're looking at the river or you're looking at the ocean and you think it is too big, it does not affect you directly or immediately, but that affects us. Is that a sustainable way of production and consumption? Definitely you need to be having indicators that you use to measure that. And when you're looking at every aspect, whether you are manufacturing, you need to look at the product that you're actually manufacturing. Is it a product that can be refurbished, its life extended, later on when it is no longer in good use, it can be recycled. So we need to look at that life cycle thinking of every product that we have. If you are cooking, whether it's food that you're cooking, and that food you cannot consume it totally, what happens? Where does the waste go? Or the remainder of that food, where does it go? Can you reheat it and eat it later on? Can you feed it to probably an animal that can take that food and utilize it to convert it to milk, eggs, or meat? So you need to look at all those things in a way that makes the utilization sustainable. And then when we look at the conformity assessment system that we've established to ensure that the products are of quality, you need to ask yourselves, what are the objectives? Then we have guidelines that are used on the attestation of compliance of goods and services with requirements contained in African standards, to set rules for the ASO mark scheme, so that when you get the mark, it's assuring you of certain qualities, of certain safety aspects, of certain utilization levels, to promote mutual recognition or equivalence of certificates among ASOCACO member states. Those are the member states of the African continent, so that they can be assured that that product meets the requirements of any other given country. And therefore, you can purchase from Uganda, you can purchase from Ethiopia, you can purchase from Chad or wherever, and you are satisfied that that product will meet your requirements. To provide training on conformity assessment systems to stakeholders and to set criteria for quality awards. So the quality awards kind of motivates companies or producers to compete or to try and see who can actually meet the requirements that are needed at the market level, and to promote collaboration in harmonization of technical regulations. So the conformity assessment itself gives a kind of avenue for us to meet the technical regulations. So when we look at all this, the conformity assessment, we have a lot of outputs that we need to see. We need to have engagements with legislators and regulators on the opportunities for effective and efficient legislation and regulations based on standards. Many times we find people basing technical regulations on very good science, but again, you find that meeting this is a bit subjective. But when they are based on standards, we have measures that can be tested, things that can be attested to conform, and therefore we can say that this meet the basic requirements of the technical regulations. So they offer those aspects. So who are the stakeholders in conformity assessment systems? We have government agencies supporting trade and industry, regulatory authorities, certification bodies, health sector, industry, including manufacturers and suppliers of products, materials, equipment, machinery, and services. And then we have small and medium enterprises. More often, these are the people who think that meeting the standards is very expensive. It's not. If they are going to be participating in a business and even in contracts with government. We have public interest groups and consumer groups, and then professional associations, developers and entrepreneurs, researchers and research institutions, education and training providers, agencies and schools, universities and colleges are interested in conformity assessment aspects. Now, sometimes you don't see this when you are doing your studies, but if you have been to any laboratory, if you have tested anything, you have demonstrated the compliance of anything to certain theories, you're actually doing conformity assessment. When we look at the conformity assessment system, it is based on credible standards. At the moment, what you're looking at are international standards, such as the rules for qualification of certification bodies, which are based on ISO IEC 17065. When we are looking at test laboratories, we are basing this on 17025, and audits are based on the same. So that we are not saying this is a very unique compromise within the African continent, but rather that we are playing within the league of international organizations. So when you look at the conformity assessment system, the way it has been arranged is that we have an advisory board, then we have the ISO secretariat, we have an administrator. We use that in general to mean, for example, the accreditation bodies. Then we have the certification bodies that utilize the services of laboratories to confirm that the products comply with the specific parameters set out in standards. And then you have the people who use these services, the producers, the farmers, service providers, retailers, in the sectors of agriculture, fisheries, forestry, tourism, and African traditional medicine. Now we have 9 schemes at the moment. These schemes cover a wide range of areas, including the primary production in agriculture, food processing, chain of custody. We have sustainability and eco-labeling, which is Scheme D, and that's the one we're going to discuss more. Then we have African traditional medicine. We have sustainable capture fisheries. We have good financial grant practice. And then we have the cosmetology and wellness. For those who are familiar with the self-grooming, if you are doing your hair, that's the barber shops and the salons, the massage parlors and all that. We have that scheme in Scheme H. And then we have the scheme that deals with sustainable mining. Now, we are currently going to introduce 2 schemes. That's one for Made in Africa and one for organic agriculture. When we look at the eco-labeling mechanism, the Secretary General has outlined that it was at the directive from the ministers who looked at the continent and found that it was a playground for so many labels, and they initiated the development of an African label. And this label is based on international standards. Is a type 1 ecomark label that captures aspects of the environment, aspects of the social well-being, and the economic aspects of any enterprise that is being assessed. So we don't assess only one aspect, but we look at the 3 aspects, that is the environment, the economy, and the social well-being, as well as the governance aspects of the particular farm that is involved. So this is Africa's first continental certification mark, which is awarded for goods and services which demonstrate environmental, economic, social, and social sustainability within the established legal framework of the country of production. So if you are doing any work within a country, you are obliged to meet the requirements in that country. So the mark was officially launched on 8th March 2019, when we had 7 companies awarded the marks, and these companies are actually the 2 of them are here today to share the experiences. So the sectors that we have covered so far include agriculture, where we have sustainable agriculture, and then we have fisheries, where we have capture fisheries, as well as aquaculture, and covering the 2 species that are very common in Africa, that's tilapia and the African catfish. And then we have a standard for forestry, and then we have tourism. Tourism, interestingly, we have, of course, certified 1 hotel in Rwanda. And when we look at the standards, these standards are very friendly, if we put it, progressive in nature, so that they allow for growth. We have 4 tiers, the first tier being the bronze level, the second being the silver level, and then the third is gold and platinum. Now, all the requirements, when you look at the totality, they are the same number. For example, taking from the agriculture sector, you find that the pre-required, when you are meeting the legal requirements within the country, you are meeting the basic safety requirements, they are all the same. We don't change. When you come now to the second level of looking at critical requirements, you might find that in the bronze level, they are less. But when you move across, you find that as you move to silver, they increase from 19 to 20, and then they increase to 29 and 30, depending on the level, meaning that you are required to meet more and demonstrate more compliance, higher levels of compliance as you move along, so that you are increasingly improving your production, you're increasingly improving your services, and you're increasing the compliance to certain levels of the standard. So if you look at that, you can see that the bottom line is that we have 232 requirements, but as you start, what you're required to meet is less. As you move along, you meet more. So that's what happens. And that is what we call the maturity model. You are maturing as you move along. So what does the eco-label promise to us? It gives us those promises that issues of corporate ethics, accountability, participation, rule of law, and holistic management are complied with. Issues of ensuring that the environment, looking at the atmosphere, land, water, biodiversity, materials, and energy, and animal welfare are complied with. They are taken into account. And then we look at the economy, you are looking at investment, minimizing vulnerability, you have value addition, you have product quality and information enhanced, the local economy is improved, and there are fair trade practices. So these are the promises that we get. Then when you look at the social well-being, there are decent livelihoods, that people are employed, people are working, people are neighbors, have decent livelihood. And then there are fair trading practices. So if they are small producers, you don't crowd them out of the market. There are also issues of labor rights, that they are respected. There's equity in terms of those who are participating, those who are maybe trading within the system. And then the issues of human health and safety are taken into account. Cultural diversity is maintained or enhanced rather than being erased from the operations of the organization, the farm. So that the EMA certification creates that confidence in consumers on the quality and safety of the food product. There's an assurance of sustainability and continued supply of goods and services. So if you have a good system that is agricultural system, it assures your clients that you are going to be supplying them continuously goods of assured quality, safety, and for a long time. Increased demand for certified products by sustainability conscious consumers. There's preference for green government procurement policies, better acceptance by local communities due to the inclusivity approach, and an assurance of compliance with product performance and safety standards. So the product, other than just meeting these aspects of social economy and environment, must be quality and must be safe. I end my presentation there. Thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions and engagement. Thank you very much.
Ruben, thank you very much for your presentation and also using the time allocated. Ruben, I would like to know, when you were discussing the tires, the bronze, the silver, the gold, and platinum, where do you see that the certification within also, or looking at maturity model, can also help our informal economy on the continent?
Definitely, thank you very much for that question. When we look at the informal sector, which we are looking, we call the SMEs, the small, medium, and micro enterprises. These are sectors that traditionally they look at certification as an expensive process, but it is not when we look at our own approaches. Where what we do to cut down the costs is that we actually allow for the companies to do self-assessment. So what happens is that we have a self-assessment tool that they can utilize. Now that self-assessment tool then informs them that they're either ready to move forward to formal application for certification, or they are not, and there are certain sectors they are going to improve. So in that respect, this is a very friendly but a kind of model that allows them to engage by having their own self-assessment and then improving where they need to improve so that they can move forward to getting certified. Now, again, what we look at is the fee structure for all this. When you look at the informal sector, is quite small as compared to big organizations. And in that one alone gives a motivation for them to participate in the certification process. Thank you very much.
Do you see, when you look at the Agenda 2063, as I said in Aspiration 1, the issues of value addition, do you see this maturity model or touching on value addition in our different sector toward industrialization?
Indeed, it does. And one of the things that we have noted is that those companies which have participated in the certification have found that the demand for their product has increased. The demand for their processed product has increased. And therefore, if you look at that process itself, that the standards go deeper into looking at the processes. What are the processes? Do these processes meet the kind of standards that are required? Do these processes certify the sustainability criteria that have been established so that they do not pollute the environment? They can assure people of the safety of that product. These particular aspects, then they support the value addition. And we are seeing increasingly that those who have participated have indicated that due to the demand, then they need to add value to their services, they need to add value to their products, and therefore complete the chain of not just applying the raw materials, but rather improving towards having a complete set of the products that can satisfy the needs of their clients. Because they would not probably want that you supplied a raw product that is certified, but you do not have a product, a value-added product that's not certified. Once that is done, then it improves the approach of value addition that is in high demand in the continent, moving away from just the extractive or raw material production processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Probably we'll come to the other question I am seeing from the participant later on. Let me move to our next speaker. Our next speaker, Joseph Odiambo, who is from the Kamuthanga farm, a farm which is certified based in Kenya. He's very well known in the area of ECOMAC because he's among the first trainees of ECOMAC who helped the farm Kamuthanga also to go through what Ruben was talking about, self-assessment, and actually to the level when they were audited and being certified. Kamuthanga Farm is a farm that is located in Machakos, which is not far from Nairobi. Those visiting Nairobi can come and visit Kamuthanga. And it has a capacity of 1 million kilograms of fish per year. He's a farm manager, and let's give him opportunity to present to us fish farming, comparative advantage, economies of scale, and sustainable production. Dan, you can share his presentation. Joseph Odiambo, you can start your presentation. Thank you very much. Dan. Joseph, are you with us? Odiambo? Joseph Odiambo? Odiambo, are you with us?
I don't see him logged in.
Let's go with, I think probably has connectivity. We'll come back to him. Let's move to Quarco. Yeah, to Samuel, who is the CEO of Quarco Initiative, exporter of organic fresh fruits, dried citrus, dried ginger, cola, cocoa, hibiscus, and fresh pressed juices. He is also a member of technical committee in Ghana and a member of technical committee harmonization on agriculture for the African Organization for Standardization. Quarco holds qualification in post-harvest management, food safety system, and standard development, international trade development, and agriculture area development planning. Samuel will be presenting to us on optimizing the horticulture in the area of sustainability. Samuel?
Yes. Hello?
You can start your presentation, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, SG. I'm wondering if you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Good. Great. Okay, so my name, SG introduced me very well, so I will not go there anymore. But then I'm Sam Kwaku from Kwaku Initiatives in Ghana. And what we do basically, SG outlined, we're into organic farming. We work with farmer-based organizations, principally looking at citrus, vegetables, and herbs. We're exporters of fresh limes, dried orange peels, dried lime peels, dried lemon peels, cocoa nibs, dried ginger. And then most importantly, we are also certified to the EcoMark Africa label. Can I have a next slide, please? Daniel, if you can move for the next slide, yes. Please go to the next slide. Daniel, please go to the next slide. Daniel, please go to the next slide. So what we will be discussing today is optimizing sustainable horticulture, farming, and trade. And what I want to do now is to look at the current situation in Africa. We're saying that horticulture, which is the growing of plants for food, comfort, and beautification, is driven in Ghana and in the majority of African countries by mainly small-scale farmers with farm sizes between 0.5 acre to 2 acres, and with few farms reaching 10 acres. Farms are scattered, usually rain-fed. Low technology is used using cutlass and hoe, and completely labor-dependent, where sustainable practices are embraced in order to conserve natural resources, enhance or maintain our environment, whilst providing for the livelihood of farm families. Cost of production becomes even higher and takes up more labor inputs and lower quantity of output. Trading in sustainably produced horticultural products commands premium prices, but products need to be certified to sustainability standards. In addition, grading is a requirement, and for produce not meeting the required grade for the table market, but have unimpaired eating quality, the unavailability of processing facility leads to high post-harvest losses or menial farm gate prices across Africa. And the intervention which will lead to optimizing sustainable horticultural farming and trade is that Ghana, as well as the rest of Africa, must embrace technology-based contract farming, certified to sustainable standards, actively marketed and regulated by the competent authorities, and partnered by banks and fintechs. Many a time you see that some of these programs come up, but just a bit of it is looked at, either a farm bit or just the post-harvest bit, but it's never looked at in holistic manner. And then the whole project fails. And so for us to be really great at it this time, we need to work across the entire value chain and have even the financiers coming on board. The Agriculture Sustainability and Eco-Labeling Standard, ARS AES01, which Ruben spoke about, for example, is a standard together with its checklists that is available to all participating African countries in the AFTA agreement. And this could be the starting point. So to this, we must add codes of practice for each produce value chain, and the codes of practice must specify higher efficiency technology to be utilized and inculcating artificial intelligence where possible. The minimum land size to be utilized, as well as extension services that will be provided. It is very difficult to leave a farmer on his own and expect that he will achieve greatness, and extension services is not integrated to ensure that what the farmer could potentially achieve is not achieved. So farmers or groups of farmers must have collective and individual contracts with the off-taker, who must clean, package, transport, distribute, market, and provide storage for produce. The off-taker must have either an in-house capacity for processing lower grade produce, or have a contract with a processor to absorb rejects from the table market. Off-taker must also have contracts of supply or purchase orders with the table market operators, both on the local market as well as on the export markets. We are saying that the off-taker, solely or in partnership with an angel investor or a fintech, must actively promote this model across the value chain axis to ensure supply is in sync with demand, and also negotiate for preferential prices for input supplies based on economies of scale, and attract the active funding of the model by major banks using contracts as collaterals or guarantees. I think this is where the bane is. Such an organized system of production, post-harvest handling, as well as financing of these sustainable productions is the only way that we have. I mean, should we put in such an intervention, then the outcome of implementing this intervention will lead to a major boom in intra-African trade in horticultural products, as well as the processed portion. Many a time when you're engaging in horticulture business, you have what we call not meeting the requirements. It's too long, it's too short, the color is off color. I mean, those kinds of things that doesn't affect the eating quality of whatever product, whatever fruit. And those fruits you can add value to. So it is not adding value to those ones that spells the doom of the horticulture companies. So if we did that, then there will be processed products as well. And both between African countries and between the continent of Africa and the rest of the world, there will be a boom in trade in horticultural products. And so there will be intensive commercial production of fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, and ornamentals, including flowers, based on sustainable practices, certified to at least an African standard, which is benchmarked to many standards in the rest of the world, because the standards we developed by ASO are benchmarked to other important standards across the world. And so by actively promoting our standards and really practicing as in trading with it, then you will see that in no time we'll be conversant with it, and the rest of the world will also start dealing with us based on those standards, rather than what we do now by certifying to international standards and not to an African standard. We're saying that for that, we're also sure that there'll be increased size of farmlands, which is what is a challenge we have here. Many farmers have half an acre, and it is not sustainable. You cannot practice well enough what you need to do and ensure that you have maximized output on small-sized farms. It's important to move from cutlass and hoe technology to something better that will ensure that you have more output from the input you put, from the level of effort you put in. Your man day, what you put in 8 hours of work in a day should give more output based on the technology we're using, which is inexpensive at the end of the day. And so we can have farm unit sizes increasing from half an acre to 50 acres because we put in a technology and making it work. And there will be enhanced value addition and processing, including
Samuel, are you still there? Samuel? Danny, does Samuel have a problem?
SG Samuel has a problem with his internet connection, so that's why he's loading.
Let's wait 1-2 minutes from Samuel. As Samuel was also at the end of his presentation, once we come back, he'll go through different questions. Let's go back. I see Joseph Odiambo. Let's go back to Joseph Odiambo, and without delay, Joseph Odiambo, you can start your presentation. Odiambo, you are most welcome.
Thank you so much. I had some internet hitches, but I think it has been resolved now. So, and my name is Joseph again, working with the Kamudanga Fish Farm, which is like a few kilometers in the east of Nairobi. And Kamudanga Farm is one of the farms that has been certified by the ARSO with platinum level. So we are enjoying the advantage and the the privilege of having this EcoMark certification. So I'll be presenting on the fish comparative advantage and economies of scale sustainability. So what you're looking at on the screen here is the different value chains we are operating on, and we understand that aquaculture is a blue revolution, and for it to remain green, and it's growing very fast. It's a very fast growing industry. And for it to remain green, we need to put a lot of policy, regulations, conformities, and standards to manage it, because we are using water, and water is a very limited resource. So to safeguard its safety, and freshness for the future generation, standardization like ARSOS and EcoMark standardization is highly needed at this particular time of revolution, or early stage of industrial revolution in aquaculture. So I know that for it to stay green, we need to address stuff like competition over water use, decreasing of the quality of water, which is witnessed everywhere in the part of the world. We also have high cost of feed, and also objection to feeding fish with fish, and also biosecurity measure, climate variability. So all those needed to be addressed in every level of at every level of value chain. Like we have the breeding, we have the where genetics is much brought into play. We have a lot of genetic manipulation in the hatchery breeding process, and the interbreeding, and the nursery farming of the consumption fish. At every level, you find that we need a lot of standards and regulation to make sure that we take care of this. Can we please move to the next slide? The next slide, please. So one of the main, because we are talking of economizing the little resources we use, and one of them being land. Land is becoming, is not increasing when the population is increasing. So it's one very important resource in aquaculture, because if you look at the production and the intensification, the more intensive the system is, the more economical the land use will be. So for example, in the screen here, you look at the level, if you use an extensive, extensive farming, whereby you are using a large ponds and a lot of water. So you find that for example, in a system, a very high intensive system, you will need only one. You only need 1 hectare to produce 700,000 tons of fish, compared to the old system or other system of farming, where you need like over 700 acres of land to produce the equal amount of fish. So you can compare 1 acre of land, you are producing 700,000 tons of fish, and at the same time you can use even 700 acres. So in terms of land use, you need like 100 times less piece of land when you intensify your production, and that is what we are using at Kamudanga, just to address this this particular aspect of resource. So with this kind of system, you look at the water use also is very much reduced, because water is very important and a resource, and it's facing a lot of pressure from different industries using the same resource. So in aquaculture, we don't want to create an imbalance in the system or in the global use of resources. So we in the aquaculture industry are also striving very hard to make sure to use the little resources that is available. So for sustainable use of land, the technology and advancement of technology is also very important. So can we move to the next slide, please? So the second thing is water budget. I know water, mostly water is used as when it comes to waste disposal. The most waste disposal goes to the water. So the water, even the little that we have already, the fresh water we have, is also under pressure because is the ever-growing population, the industrial revolution, the domestic use, and at the same time is being used as a agent of waste disposal. So it's becoming limited with the time. So aquaculture, now that fish need water, not as to drink or to do what, but as an environment where it can stay, or as a house, we need to provide a very quality water for this living organism. Because from the environment, there's something called bioaccumulation. If you grow the fish in a bad environment, the contamination or the toxic material or the contaminant will accumulate in the body of the fish. And at the end of the day, it will be transferred to the consumer. And that is not what we are looking at. We are looking at healthy product from the little resource we have to produce very healthy product for the consumer. So if you look at the chart there, we are looking at the way different system of fish farming. We are looking at flow-through system. We are looking at RAS system. We are looking at RAS oxygenation. So those are the systems that if you involve, like the flow-through system, these are the systems that use a lot of water. So the lot of water you use, and the more water you use, the more you'll discharge into the environment. So, but the less you use, the less you can manage it. So the first system there, the flow through, you lose a lot, or you discharge a lot as well to the natural environment. So that goes to create stuff like things like eutrophication and the general creation of imbalance in the natural system. So the choice of the system in use goes a long way in taking care of the water budget of any production system. So like the RAS system, you are only using 500 liters for every kilogram of fish you produce. But you look at the flow-through system, you are using 50,000 liters. So for instance, in Kenya, we're looking at the we have a deficit of fish, like 800,000 kilograms of fish, 800,000 metric ton of fish, a deficit in the market. So if you want to address that with this level of with the flow-through system as a way of growing fish, you may not even get enough water to take care of that deficit. But you're looking at the RAS system, which is the most advanced system. Now that one addresses water use properly, because you only need very little water to address the gap that we have in demand in the market outside there. So that one is also on water budget, and that is one of the issues that need to be addressed in regard to sustainable production and for future safety of consumption of fish and the environment. So next slide. So this is on feed. Feed is another aspect that because we are growing fish and we need to feed them, because you hold them in captivity, you need to provide all the nutritional requirement for them. So what you provide for the fish as a nutritional requirement eventually end up in someone's plate. So the choice of the ingredients, the inputs you put in production of the feed is very important for the health of not only the fish but also the consumer. So because we are also advised that for environmental sustainability, we need to adapt the species that feeds lower in the food chain, like the tilapia. They are herbivorous, so that we don't put pressure on other animals by providing nutrition for them. For example, carnivorous animal, you will need to go an extra mile to go to the wild or wherever to grow other source of protein like animal protein to satisfy the nutritional requirement of the fish you are culturing. But for tilapia, it's a herbivorous, which means they can efficiently utilize the protein from the plant. So the plant source of protein is abundant as compared to animal source of protein. So it also makes it cheaper And because the end of the end goal here is to make sure that we come up with affordable product or affordable product for everyone, because this is for sustainable consumption. We don't need to produce something that is out of reach of so many people. One of the presenters say that we don't need to produce for luxury. It's a basic need. We make fish a basic need for the consumer. So if we use low products, I mean, the species feeds low in the food chain, then it makes it easy to produce it and make it even cheaper to produce it. So it become more affordable for everyone and more healthier for the consumer, because you won't be struggling with the other disorganizing the environment by providing nutrition for your system. So the cost of the feed also depend with, like this one, some cheaper feed comes at a very high FCR. FCR means the amount of waste that is discharged to the environment. So very cheap feed means that you are using a lot of, you are losing a lot of nutrients to the environment from your production system, and it's not healthy for anyone, for the environment and for the farm also. Next and next slide. So economic sustainability for this, because everybody is venturing into aquaculture as a business, and it cannot be sustainable if you are not making profit out of it. So depending with how you balance resources, the water, the electricity, the labor, and all together, when it makes economic sense, more people will come into the business, and the more pressure that the more the people comes into the business, the economy, the limited resources will be constrained, and then that is where we have the imbalance in the natural environment. And that is, if you look at this, you see that the economics works well, because in fish farming, if you have a profit of 40%, that is a very good venture. So the it's a economically viable business, and that's why it's not only but going to grow every year. Like it's the fastest growing agribusiness industry. It's among the fastest growing the agribusiness industry. So let's move to the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So fish production is faced by so many things. You know, like you see, we have different, like the genetics. Genetics plays a very important in the production of the fish, and the genetic improvement. And if you look at all this affects the sustainability at the end of the day, because if we are talking of genetics, like by genetic manipulation, you want to manipulate the gene of the fish, and some other time maybe you have escapees going to the environment. Is the gene pool outside there, the diversity of the gene in the environment safe? So those are the factors that need some control mechanism measures to be put in place to govern this kind of activities in the value chain of fish production. Like we have the feeds. We say that the feed, the ingredients depend. We have the people using antibiotics. We have the hormones. We have the growth hormones being used in the industry. So is it to the safe level of the human consumption? Those are needs, areas that need to be addressed, the regulation, not only the system. Like we have the system. Is it healthy for the fish affair? Because it's an animal, we have animal affair. Is it overstocked? So the system should be able to make the fish as comfortable as possible, so that when the product that is produced from the system is safe for the consumption. We have the farmer training and the certification now coming in. So we have the management of this. How do you manage the system? You may have the system, but you don't know how to manage it, and then it's become the source of pollution or source of imbalance to the environment, because you discharge more. because how you balance the resources in the production of fish also matters a lot. So the certification of every level of this area need to be addressed separately for us to end up with the healthy product at the end of the day. Yeah, next slide. So impact of aquaculture on environment, we can see is on water use and water right use. Like most of the people, you share a common water resource. Aquaculture needs a lot of water. If we don't have regulation on water use and water rights use, like we have, even if it's the underground water, is it about sharing the aquifer? If it's the surface water, up hills, are people diverting a lot of water? Are they discharging a lot of waste to cause because fish farming is a source of a lot of nitrogen being discharged into the environment, and this will cause pollution and eutrophication by causing a lot of carbon and phosphorus imbalance in the nest. So we have the algal bloom, which at the end of the day, we have also the diseases and pathogens. In aquaculture is where you have so many fish concentrated in a very small area, and that encourages the disease and pathogens because they multiply very fast. We have some industries and people using steroids or drugs for pathogen resistance. Are these fish going to develop immune against the drugs, which may even reflect in the human when they are using the normal drugs? So could it be from the fish? So, or are fish escaping from the invasive species? Because we have people importing, different countries importing different strains. Could it be a source of invasion into the natural water bodies we have around? So these are areas that we, when a farm is covered under some standards or regulation, we'll be able to act as a checks and balance in the daily operation of any farm, as we are enjoying right now from the ARSO standards and regulation. So those are the main impact on aquaculture to environment. So on energy, because we are talking of a blue revolution, and we don't need to leave a carbon footprint. So the choice of energy use, are we using a more safe energy like the solar? So because you look at the solar, look on the screen, we have the solar here, the component of solar making it very even cheaper, and that make it more sustainable. So the cheaper the source of power, it makes it more sustainable and more healthy to environment. So those are some of the combination you can select in the running of the farm, because the farm is becoming more and more intensive, and when it become the more it becomes intensive, the more energy you will use in the making sure that the production runs smoothly. Yeah. To the next slide. So that brings us to the end of that, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Samuel. I saw Samuel, you are back. I always like discussing with private sector, because this issue of finance, that's always coming. And both of you talked about the finance, and a very good presentation. And actually, like looking at the last 3 slides of Joseph, how really you have made an impact on cost cutting in the fish farming, where many people are really scared to enter the aquaculture because of the costs. Maybe the first question, both of you, same question. Can you tell us what you have seen as the benefit of the certification, the eco mark? Because when you look at the previous presentation from Ruben, when he was talking about many people probably asking, saying that the certification is expensive, they cannot enter into certification because of the cost. What are your views on that, starting with you, Samuel? We can't hear you. Samuel, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry. Thank you very much, SG. I was saying that for us, looking at the cost of certification on the EcoMark compared to the cost of certification for organic US and organic EU, which we already do, the EcoMark certification cost is not much. I mean, it's within range. It is not expensive. The difference rather is that the EcoMark brand is not marketed enough within Africa. So you don't seem to have people coming and demanding for things. So whereas in the on the European and the US side, it is marketed, the organic standards are marketed. So you have people putting through orders for organic certified produce. And I think that is where the challenge is. So my point is that we need to make that conscious effort of marketing the standard. Consumers must demand to consume sustainably produced things in Africa, because we should realize that if we do not do that, our future, our collective future is at stake, because people are producing things today, which means, like Ruben described, in the not too distant future, the land is gone or the water body is gone, and that is not helping us. So we must reward people or demand to eat only things that are sustainably produced and it's certified by a third party. I think that's the way forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Marketing is very crucial. Thank you very much. Joseph.
Yeah, from the experience we've had since we got the EcoMark labeling certification, we have, because in Africa, we understand that most people, like the low earning people, they are not conscious of what they consume. And you find that in our market right now, most of the high-end market which we target, those are the people who are a little bit more becoming more aware of what they consume, because now it has helped us open more shops, like because to target the high-end market. But the low-end market, they don't care what they consume. So you find that the EcoMark works for, it has opened doors for us for the retail markets that demand for some level of standards or standardization, like the traceability, what do you produce, how do you produce it, do you have any kind of certification? For such kind of market, yes. But for low market, you find that like Ruben has said, that most people, they are not conscious of what they are taking. So that need for sure for sensitization and for the EcoMark, so that people know that their health, what they consume contributes to their health, and also is very important. Yeah.
Joseph, you mean that it's opened up your market? And we have heard that so many times, like what Samuel is saying, when they are consumers outside the continent, it's when now the market looks booming, because the consumers that are importing those products are requesting maybe that level. But you are also saying that you managed to enter the local market, looking at not probably the lower end of the market, but a Kenyan market that also is requesting a certain traceability. I mean, do you see, both of you, do you see a value of ECOMAC within the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and probably increasing the intra-Africa trade? I start with you again, Samuel.
Yeah, actually, it's very important to create local markets because, like I say, the market we are targeting, and you see that the high-end market is more informed about their health than the low-end market. So actually, it is the bottom line is Africa, which is very good for us because we are not seeking for the outside market at the moment, because even the local market is more attractive than the outside market, if you ask me, in the aquaculture business. So I would just suggest that we strengthen the local market by sensitizing people, because in most cases, the high-end markets, they are more exposed people. They have interacted with other outside standards. They know, they value what they take in. So at the end of the day, when more sensitization, we sensitize even the low-end market, it will open eyes for everyone. Because we had a notion before of cultured fish are not as healthy as wild-caught fish. But now the feedback we are getting is it's reverse. People are saying, oh, you better understand, you better consume what you understand, how it was produced and what standard did it follow before it got to your plate. So I think that is a plus for us, and also for our local and domestic market, more than the foreign market. Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. You are making me thinking about my retirement in aquaculture sector. Samuel.
Yes. Yeah. I see that the way forward for us as a continent is to really put to use standards. You see, the issue is this: if you put only rubbish on the market, then people who don't have money will still eat it. But if you put only good things on the market, people who don't have money will still eat that one. So the issue is about regulation. Are we comfortable as a continent allowing things to be done just anyhow? Pesticide residue should be high on fruits and vegetables. Things should be grown in unwholesome places. We'll put it out there because the low-end people will buy that one, and then they eat and die of cholera and die of all kinds of tumors because we did not regulate it. If we do not take that approach as a continent, then we are doomed. Because in other continents, they regulate it. They say to themselves, before you put anything out there for anyone to eat, make sure that it doesn't have high loads of pesticides on it. It doesn't have high levels of pathogens on it. It is produced under this kind of certification. At least we have checked and have approved and have allowed it to be taken. And if we can do that within Africa, there'll be an increased volume of trade amongst ourselves. A lot of produce is imported from outside Africa into Africa, into our supermarkets in Ghana. The lead supermarkets, all the ShopRites and malls, they are filled with things from elsewhere. But we can do the same here and ensure that they have been produced sustainably. And we can use our own standards, which we have developed for the entirety of the African continent, to do that. And so I see the AFTA as an opportunity for Africa to make do with what it has and improve itself, the sustainability and the livelihood of its farmers, as well as its citizenry, and as well as its businesses, so that together it will be cheaper to consume our own, healthier to consume our own, and better to invest in our own, and we will grow and develop as a people. I think there is an opportunity for it, but we need to take a positive action on that. We need to go beyond just those of us who are small and doing it in the right way, to where you have the regulators coming in and saying you cannot sell if you have not certified. And that's where we have to go.
Thank you, Samuel. Actually, we are going now there. We are going to the regulator. To another exciting presentation. As what we are saying, we need the view of a regulator. Our next presenter is Bongani from South Africa, who is the general manager to the national regulator for compulsory specification. I know it's really a very challenging now job, Bongani, while you have the mandate on compulsory specification, and we are talking also on voluntary standard, on voluntary sustainability standard. We would like to see your views with your extensive experience in quality issues, having done the National Technical Diploma in Engineering, human resources issues, telecom policy, regulation and management program, having been working in the South African Bureau Standard before you went to the National Regulatory for Compulsory Specification. Bongani, talk to us on conforming with the technical regulation issues in this area. The floor is yours, Bongani.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the introduction. The mandate for the presentation was to focus on the impact of COVID-19 on the regulations, technical regulations to be specific. So, and also to present a few slides. So I try to stick to the mandate by cutting out the introduction and just cut to the chase. So bear with me. If you want to know more about the NRCS, you can just Google it, and you should be able to get hold of us. And also, ARSO office does have our contact. I'm sure they will be able to share that. Okay. Basically, the technical infrastructure in South Africa, they are at the bottom, the different technical infrastructure agencies who then report to the legislature, which is the Department of Trade and Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, who then get the mandate, which is the policy direction from the government, the parliament. Next slide, please. Now, getting to NRCS as one of the essential services or service providers when it comes to COVID-19. What then happened when the president declared the Disaster Management Act as in force at that time, then the country moved into a disaster way of operating. So where all other things and a number of regulations, I counted more than 50 regulations that were passed during the March to now in terms of managing the COVID-19. But within the NRCS, the food and associated industry, which also regulates fish, had to develop a operational plan just to ensure the business continuity, you know, in dealing with fish and other meat industries. We then had to do a remote document inspection before we can issue health guarantee certificates. We conducted inspection at OR Tambo for exports under strict COVID-19 protocols, which therefore meant we had to change the manner that we do our day-to-day operation to comply with the COVID-19 protocols. But this also had its positive spin-offs in that there was even increased collaboration between NRCS and other regulators and other department who had interest in the food sector. From the chemical and material section, as we all aware that personal protective equipment became an essential service or products. So this unit here deals with the approval of masks. So we had to shorten the process of approving masks, considering that there was a shortage of masks in the country. So we had to find a quicker way of approving that while less protecting the consumers. So we looked at the safety critical requirements of the standards rather than requirements like packaging and others, which are not safety critical. We then developed a technical regulation on sanitizers for the department to approve. And we didn't have a technical regulation, though there was a standard, but there was a need that the sanitizers comply with the percentage of alcohol that is required on it and all other aspects. So that was done within a week, which is something that we realized that as regulators, we can do our work speedily and if really there's a need. Now, we've also participated in the Occupational Health and Safety PPE committees. These are the committees that included a number of government departments, regulators, hospital association, SAPRA, which is South African Health Products Regulatory Agency, and other laboratories, because it was a coordinated effort to while regulate and make sure that the products are in the market and they are safe to be used. It also increased collaboration with other regulators, especially neighboring countries such as Namibia and Botswana, where there was a lot of exchange of information amongst these countries in ensuring that the development of technical regulation, especially for disinfectants, is common, or we learn from each other in the South there. Next slide, please. Now, while we're doing this, there was also a requirement for every organization to ensure protection of the staff. The Occupational Health and Safety Act number 85 of 1993, in terms of this, we had to ensure that there's testing of employees, social distancing, psychosocial support, disinfecting of the workplace, as well as the other hygiene protocols. So we had to rearrange and ensure that there is rotational shifts when people come to work, and reorganize the teams in terms of the market surveillance that we do, as well as the approval, and ensure that our value chains had to be changed and streamline the work to ensure that we are able to still service the industry while at least we are working remotely and expedite the requirements. We can move to the next slide. Now, the impact of COVID-19 on trade, if you can move to the next slide, please. What we have picked up on trade, there's been a very negative impact on shipments. As we all aware, some of the products that we get or raw material comes from other countries, especially in the East. We find that the cost of shipping has increased by more than 22%, and all over regions we've experienced that. And also containers, the movement of containers is taking longer now, even raw material that needs to go to maybe Asia for production, it's stuck in other locations. The restrictions resulted to less people at the ports of entry, thus taking long to tend the ships and the airlines. Producers not able to absorb. This is another challenge as regulators we need to be aware of, because now obviously the producers will tend to pass these costs to the consumers. We have experienced a similar thing in South Africa, where the cost of medicine, especially those drugs that were COVID related, the prices started shooting up, which government got aware of this, and there were some companies that were penalized for doing this. Also, limited access to factories, port of entry, and also retail. So in terms of our inspections that we do at the retail as well as factories, we could not go there if they're not complying with the COVID protocols. But also because of the numbers, sometimes they are not available to be able to open the boxes so that we can do test or inspections. But now this also affected both the supply and the demand of the value chain. You know, in the supply, you would find that the reduction of labor because of many reasons, whether the staff, they are not well, or they maybe have to be at home with their families, has restricted the movement and the ability to conduct the test. And also from the demand side, the loss of revenue. You know, we've seen some liquidations of some of the companies, and especially SMMEs or SMEs having a problem in handling or dealing with the high cost and the lack of demand of their products. Now, with all these things that I've said, they therefore increase the demand for cheaper products. The poor quality and cheap products become lucrative, you know, when people are unemployed and not having enough money to pay for the products that are safe. So these are the things as regulators that we are monitoring. Next slide. Also, e-commerce, though worldwide there's a slow economy, as I said on the previous slide, but COVID-19 has resulted to a surge in e-commerce, you know. And I read, which I thought I should share, a global review of from the EU, from the United Nations, one of their conference on trade. And now this report, as I've just summarized here, that the global e-commerce has seen a growth from 14% to 17% between 2019 to 2020. There's also been a strong uptake of e-commerce across the regions, including emerging economies. And Jumaya, I don't know how you pronounce it, as Jumaya, the African e-commerce platform, has reported a 50% increase in e-commerce transactions, which shows even here in Africa, there's been a surge of intake in e-commerce. China on its own is also between 2019 to 2020, they've seen an increase from 19.4% to 24.6% of e-commerce sales. Now, with all this, there's still challenges, there's still problems with accessibility or taking advantage of e-commerce, that is both the consumers and the businesses. There are challenges, obviously, that are known to all of us, the cost of broadband services, especially in our region, over-reliance on cash, lack of consumer trust of e-commerce, banking system, and the regulations. Sometimes even if the banking system is okay, but the regulations that are there are not conducive to promote e-commerce, infrastructure deficit, and data security. These are some of the challenges that we are seeing when it comes to e-commerce. Next slide. Okay, next slide, please. Hello, can you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Just here, some recommendations that us as regulators, we can also help our governments. There is a need that we should build an enabling e-commerce ecosystem in our countries. You know, this will require the changes in the public policy and business practice. It will require the improvement of digital and trading infrastructure to facilitate digital payments, establish appropriate legal and regulatory framework for the online transaction and security. You know, things like electronic signatures. You know, without that, it will be a bit challenging to take advantage of e-commerce. From the issues of technical regulation requirements and conformity assessment models, now that the retailers are reducing or are no longer there, it therefore means that as a regulator, you may not be able to go to a retail shop and do your inspection there. So we do need now a different approach in terms of how we regulate these industries. A holistic regulatory model that covers all supply chain models should be developed. I assist us in doing this work. We may also require to share the technology, especially platforms, and as regulators using technology like open source. Consumer information, education, and awareness campaigns would be required. I've picked up that Senegal has ran an information campaign across different sectors of the population, specifically on e-commerce. That was, I think, late last year. I think it's something that can be replicated in other countries. Consumer protection remains a challenge in terms of quality, because there is no one now to ensure that the product are safe, quality, issues of guarantees and recalls. If the product is non-complying, where would you go? Because sometimes the traders that you buy from are not even within our jurisdiction, are outside of our jurisdiction. So these are the things that as regulators, we need to start thinking about and come up with different models of regulating the industry. Just my last comment there, I do feel that this is a personal view, that countries that enhances the potential of e-commerce will benefit more from the Africa market. That is through the e-commerce. And then those who will fall behind, fail, will then fall behind. I think we need to move all with speed and also assist each other as different countries, and regulators can also play a critical role in enabling the environment here. Next slide. Okay. Now, the fourth industrial revolution. Yes, indeed, my examples here, unfortunately, they are not in the agriculture, as my previous speakers are from that sector. But 4IR would be also useful already. Some of the farmers are already using that in terms of inspections that they do and other work. But there are also challenges with for IR. You know, the boundaries that were there on technologies have sort of disappeared. The example that I've got here is gaming and gambling. You know, so now the boundaries are no longer there; they are blurred now. So because of the online gambling. So the issues of reality and virtual reality, these are the issues that we need to really work on as regulators. Online gambling, you know, the ability to detect the online gambling and intervene where necessary, because sometimes you find underage kids maybe busy with the PlayStation, and this thing can allow them also to end up competing with other people that they don't know where they're from, which could lead to some form of illegal gambling. So these are the other challenges. Though artificial intelligence could assist regulators in terms of data analysis, which would enhance the policy decisions that we have to make and decide on the interventions that we want to make. So I can just share that from the NRCS, we are currently busy with the IT modernization project, which embraces the artificial intelligence. We're hoping that issues of big data, Internet of Things, and would also be considered to ensure that we improve our enforcement strategies. Also, we're looking at, in some cases, remote inspection using technology is one of the directions that we're hoping to go towards. Then the next slide. Yeah, as a way forward, I'm suggesting that the harmonization of technical regulations and to give effect to trade within Africa continent and other regions should be really considered. Now, for instance, we can through through CACO maybe look at the priorities of Africa and identify whatever applicable technical regulations. And then if we pick up gaps, that could be the start, you know, where we can see how best we can align these technical regulations. Or even if they remain what they are, but at least to recognize each other's conformity assessment model. You know, one test, one certificate, one approval, you know, so regardless of what technical regulation is used, that is possible. I think this is some work that I would appreciate if we can look at from the CACO point of view. Implementation of risk-based approach to inspection and approval. I think it's important that as regulators, so that we don't become a burden to trade, we really put up an appropriate effort. You know, where there's less risk, less interventions are required. Where there's high risk, more intervention are required. So a risk-based approach would assist with that. Build partnerships with industry and other regulators. It's very pleasing to see at this forum that there's quite a number of industries that are already part of these discussions. And we need to really form these partnerships, because at the end, we all having one goal, which is the safety of the consumers. Development of the database of all regulators and their scope of work. Currently, there is a challenge that we don't know all the regulators. You know, if one asks me what I regulate in South Africa, who's the regulator in Kenya or in Sudan, I'm not able to do that. So I'm hoping we can maybe also can assist us in developing this database so that we can then move to the requirements, and then we can then see how best we can align these requirements. Enhance the participation of small business, the SMEs, on technical regulation. It remains a challenge. It's another area that we should be looking at. And also as a collective participation in the international and continental forums, as well as influencing the decisions of these forums, it will be very important. Thank you very much. I think that's the last of my presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bongani, for a very good presentation. And looking at how COVID came in and the challenge that we all had, and actually the challenge of social distancing itself without going for inspection. Yeah, and while we continue to look for food on our table and safe food, looking at some of the comment on quality culture that we should be having. And we know many regulators are taken as police on the street going to close my business. Yeah. Do you think we need another disaster or pandemic disaster to come and tell us that we need to abide on quality issues before even we talk about the technical regulation themselves? Become a culture within us from the producer's side, and the consumers demand to have quality product before even you put on any regulation. That is my question to you, and probably you link it to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Thank you, Bongani.
Thank you. I think just to be straightforward and respond, we don't have to wait for the disasters in order to embrace quality, safety, and compliance to technical regulations. It would be wrong of us to do that, because disasters come with disruption, comes with debt, comes with loss of business, loss of revenue, and all those things. We wouldn't want to go that route. But having said that, it is a responsibility of every government to regulate or to ensure safety. Let me put it this way: to ensure the safety of consumers. So the health and safety of consumers in some of the products cannot be ascertained through just by looking at the product. It requires technical evaluation in terms of testing, in terms of the standards that needs to comply with, in terms of regulators monitoring and ensuring that there is continuous compliance. Because without that, there is always scrupulous traders who, given a chance, they will always try and take shortcuts. But also, if we want access to foreign markets, the only way that we will get access to foreign markets is when there's confidence that the products that we regulate are compliant with and are safe for the foreign consumers. And it is through these technical infrastructure activities, which is the standards, the testing, the certification, and the regulation, that would give us that access to the foreign markets. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Building capacity for quality infrastructure is very key to create that trust among ourselves. Going toward the conclusions, I will be giving, I look at some of the questions, they are not so many. I will be giving you some of the opportunity to respond to the question, and also at the same time give one recommendation. Starting from you, Ruben, there was a question on all the tires you have presented. yeah, looking at the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the platinum. Do they cost the same amount when you go through that certification? And how do you reach the EcoMark certification? Then give your recommendation for this webinar. Ruben?
Yeah, thank you very much. When you look at those tires, I had indicated that if you look at the fee structure, you'll find that the fee varies, because what it means is that if you are doing the bronze level, and if the farm has assessed itself and found that that's where they fall, then it means the amount of work that is done for auditing, the scope of coverage, is much less than when you are looking at the subsequent tires. So in that case, then it means that the lower the tire, obviously the lower the cost. When it comes to looking at the other levels, there's a higher demonstration of compliance when you are looking at the platinum, for example. And that would indicate that the preparatory work by the farm itself then would cost more than what it would when you are doing the bronze. So in that case, then it matches. But however, again, when you look at which companies, for example, would go for the lower level, the lower tires, you might find that it is more suitable for the SMEs to start with that rather than starting with the platinum, because the costs would then be suitable for them to start growing. Now, in my view, in this kind of webinar, what we are looking at is as the issue of sustainable consumption and production goes, that indeed being certified to the EcoMark label is a demonstration that you are very keenly aware of the amounts of consumption that you need to have, which are sufficient to meet your operations. It doesn't mean that they are very basic that you are struggling, but rather they are sufficient and enough for your operations, rather than having an extravagant consumption. And therefore, the EcoMark label demonstrates that you are optimizing the natural resources without impacting negatively to those of the other people depending on the same resources, if it is water, if it is land, air, and other conditions. And therefore, that is a suitable way of ensuring that you are economically sustainable, you are environmentally sustainable, you are socially sustainable, and you are a dependable organization that can assure people of continuous supply of services and goods. And therefore, it's a good mark that can put you at a good level of desire by the consumers than when you do not have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What would be your recommendation, Ruben? The takeaway message?
I would say that the time for being certified to EcoMark is now, and being certified to EcoMark is a sure way of getting your stakeholders to be convinced that you are dependable and the products and services are of the right quality. So the mark is highly recommended for all levels of production, whether it's SME, is a big company or medium-sized company or a big company.
Thank you. EcoMark, the way to go to build the trust. That trust, when I see it somewhere, so some of the question came from participants, those following us on Zoom, and there are others following us on Facebook. One question is always on the consumers. How can we build trust of African consumers to consume what we produce? In 2 minutes, please. The voice, we cannot hear you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, SG. I hope I can be heard now. Yes, the consumer in these days is becoming aware of the ill effects of products that have not been sustainably produced. And that is the general trend. But the challenge is the consumer is not able to determine on the open market which products have been sustainably produced from the ones that have not. The consumer is also aware that some producers can't put things up and label it as sustainably produced, yet they are not. So it is incumbent on us, producers and regulators, to come up with these standards and make the consumers aware of what goes into them. So using, for example, our eco labeling sustainability standard for agriculture. If many more people are made aware of the existence of that standard and made aware of what it takes, what it does, how it protects the environment, how it ensures sustainability, how it ensures that anyone who bears the mark has conformed to making sure that what is consumed is safe for us, what is consumed does not harm our future, our environment, then people will begin to want to patronize that. I'll share the example of Ghana. We have a local standard, a green label standard. And the green label standard is produced for food safety. So we have informed the general public about the safety of foods that bear that label. And that is enough for people to want to buy. And that is the way forward. It must be a demand pull approach rather than a production push approach. So I think that consumers will only begin to patronize when we have engaged them from a point of administering the label, the standard, and discussed with them enough to buy into it. Then you have many more people consuming, and then production will improve.
Thank you. What is the takeaway message in a few seconds?
Yes, I think the takeaway message is so clear that we are there already. We have gone through the thin and thick of writing out standards and identified what needs to be done. It is now up to our regulators to take it up and market it and insist that that is the way forward for everyone.
Thank you, Samuel. Meaning implementation. How do we implement our standards? How do we adopt those standards at the continental level? And linking to what also Ruben said, how do we implement EcoMark? How do we go for certification? Odiambo, I saw some of the observation from our participants. That some of the participants don't feel like all the three foundation of sustainability, which is environment, which is economic and social, have been taken care of. Can you give an example of social activity parts that you are doing as Kamuthanga, being one of the farm that have been certified as platinum?
Yeah, so we also like, as Kamuthanga farm, we also have a social responsibility to the community. Responsibility that we, because social responsibility is one of the pillars of the national the Kenya agenda, so we have to comply with that. So like a gender responsibility, like we take care of that. a social responsibility to the community that it's also safe for the existence of the farm is safe to the community around. So we comply with that, and it's not that it's neglected, though it was not mentioned in the presentation, but Kamudanga farm also is operating within that. Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. And what would be the takeaway message to us who participated in this webinar?
Yeah, I know fish farming is young, it's growing, but as it grows, I know people are trying different things. So the message outside there is that we need standards, we need governance in operation for us to come up with not only enter business as because it's a viable business, because you go to make money. We need to be a source of healthy diet for the community, for the low end or even high end, the whole consumer level. So I think it's high time we embrace the standardization for the operations and for the quality product at the end of the day, because it's a growing concern. It's not only that most consumers goes to the market, they look at the company, the brand of the company, but they overlook the standards, the production standards that are, or any level of standardization that the marks bears or the branding bears. So I think the awareness to the consumer also will make this more sustainable in the long run. So I think that is the next move in all this.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Bongani, there is observation that I saw and a question that are the regulatory body ready to push the Bureau of Standards to take up the continental standard, the ARZO standard, which are compulsory, and start treating them in developing their technical regulation at national level? Are you ready to start for the implementation of the AFCFTA, or what are your advice for the regulatory bodies?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Maybe to respond, I will start by just saying that one of my responsibilities in SADC is to run as a secretariat for the TBTSC, which is a SADC Technical Barriers to Trade Stakeholder Committee. And each time we have workshops with industry or the stakeholder, the question always comes to say, why different standards for the same products, different standard, just because I'm taking my product across the border? Why do I have to test to a different standard just because I'm taking my product across the border? So these are the questions that the regulators have been getting. So our request, an ongoing request to standard organizations is that exactly the development of the standards that can be regulatable, and also development of standards that are portable, meaning the same standard would, if a trader wants to take the product to the east or west of Africa, the same standard is exactly what is recognized there. So that is what the regulators have been crying for from the standard writers. Now, having said all that, the regulators are ready, but it's just that maybe the regulators needs more engaged. They need to engage more. As I said, we need to start looking and know each other, start looking at what are the differences amongst maybe the conformity assessment models that we are using, or the technical regulations, so that we can start working towards bridging these gaps and assist the traders for the success of the trade agreement.
Thank you very much. And that would be your takeaway message, that we need one standard. Yeah.
You know, that just as maybe a takeaway, I would just say we need, as Africa, to adopt the principle and also implement the principle of one standard, one test, one certification, one approval, and one Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In summary, we will start with that last one. Yeah, we need one standard, one certificate, one test, one Africa, one continent. We move forward all together. One standard, one test, one certificate. The other takeaway, implementation of standards, adoption of standard at country level, that can feed into the first one of one standard, one test, one certificate. Let's embrace the certification of EcoMark and other to build trust among our consumers, as we have seen by examples that actually it can also cut costs of production. And let's our consumers start embracing the quality culture that is the only way that we will demand our producers, we will demand our government organization to take care of the quality infrastructure and build the capacity. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our presenters, being Ruben Gisore, Technical Director, Arzo, Joseph Odiambo, Samuel Ni Kwarko, being Bongani Kanyile from South Africa. We had from West Africa, from Samuel. We had East Africa from Joseph. We had Southern Africa from Bongani. And I think we should move forward. Our next webinar will be next month. We will again inform you on the different presentation that we will be having on 19th May 2021, where we will be again discussing on trading in agriculture and food product. As you know, this is very crucial for African market. We should continue discussing this, but be ready, because we have been having challenges of how do we take TBT and SPS issues? That is the issue that we will tackle. We will handle on our continent. We have been discussing how do we deal with this interface between TBT and SPS while we are dealing with agriculture and food product. See you next month on 19th. We also have great presenters. I want to excuse my team. You know, we are always gender balanced. Yeah, today we had a challenge of having all male that you are seeing on the panel. But behind this great man, this great personality, they were a team of balanced gender. Do not worry. But next time, as usual, we will also again try our best to be very gender sensitive as we are. But we had some challenges with two presenters who couldn't make it to this webinar. I thank you very much. I thank our participants who have been with us. Actually, we had 300 registered participants, and these webinars, we have different meetings going on within ARZO. It was only accepting 100 attendees. Others were following us on Facebook, but this issue also will be managed next time to open up again, once again, to many participants as usual. Thank you.